Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the family. Okay, so I feel like I've been doing a lot of reviews, first impressions lately, and I'm tired. That's what it comes down to. I am tired as hell. So I figured today I would come and do a episode 2 for my Makeup and Murder series. My intentions was to have this every month, but it's a lot of work. So I don't know about the frequency or the cadence of how this is going to be. But I basically wanted to talk about sort of 2 series that I ended up finishing on Netflix. Tinder Swindler and Bad Vegan. Because they have been living in my head rent-free. And I mean rent-free. So I just want to talk about it. Not necessarily from the perspective of let's recap the true crime aspect of it. I just want to share my opinions because, whew, child. If you watched it, you already know. Alright, so in doing that, I'm just going to play with makeup. I am going to be trying some new to me products. I'll be testing this, I think it's called the Butterfly Palette from Sugar Drizzle. It is stunning. This is the color story here. And I'll probably sprinkle in some other new to me products in there. But y'all already know what it is. Alright, come on in close and let's get started. Okay, so I decided I wanted to talk about, the story of Tinder Swindler and Bad Vegan. Because I have been really interested in sort of Netflix's dive into true crime. I think Netflix has a very interesting and unique style when it comes to the way in which they tell true crime stories, the way in which they get involved in true crime stories. That's very different from shows like Dateline or ABC 2020. And it just seems like lately they've been telling these stories that are not as gory as some other true crime stories that just seem to have this lane of it's just unbelievable. This unbelievable story. And there's a lot of shock value. There's a lot of question marks, like who, what, when, how. And I think that's why they've been getting such a really great response to those stories. Okay, so let's start with Tinder Swindler. Jesus. So Tinder Swindler tells the story of this guy. His name is Simon. I can't remember his last name, but his name is Simon. And basically, he is masquerading as this multi-millionaire who is looking for love on Tinder. But instead of actually looking for love on Tinder, he's looking for women on Tinder that he could swindle, hence the name, out of money. It's basically this long con that he is playing using Tinder as his hunting grounds. So the story on Netflix is told from the perspective of 3 women, 3 of his victims. 3 women that he conned out of their money. So with that being said, I feel like there was definitely this air in which the story was told where it 100% painted these women as victims. And they are. Don't get me wrong. Don't at me. Don't fight me. They are the victims. But I feel like the way in which the story was told kind of takes away from their responsibility or involvement in what happens, whatever that may be. So Cecilia, I think is her name, is the lead woman in this story and the one who actually kicks things off. And the series starts off with her telling her story, telling how she met Simon. So basically, she uses Tinder to go on dates, and she sees Simon. Looks like a really nice guy. He has all of these pictures of him traveling and doing these really extravagant things. You can tell from the photos that he has on his profile and on his Instagram, and she said that she Googled him, that he is very affluent. So, of course, her interest is piqued. He's an attractive man. It seems wealthy, so she swipes right or whatever, right or left. I have never been on Tinder. I don't know how it works. But she swipes and he swipes back. So they start messaging. I'm trying not to laugh, but this story is just so unbelievable in so many ways that it's just oh. So anyways, So she swipes, he swipes back, and they decide to meet for drinks. So they're talking, conversation going well. They decide to meet for drinks. So she meets him at this hotel, this bougie hotel that he's staying at, and they have brunch. And conversation again continues to go well. And he tells her, you know, like he has to fly out for something else. So he's leaving. I don't know if it was that same day or whatever the case is, but he's flying out again. So then he invites her to come with him. And this is where my first, like, red flag, and when I mean flag, I mean like a curtain hanging. That was when I was like, that didn't seem like a red flag to you? I have never in my life thought to myself, I'm just gonna jump on a plane with somebody I've just met just because I think they have millions of dollars. Like, and you know, I shouldn't even say that was my first red flag, because in my opinion, the first red flag is, have you ever heard of a millionaire fishing for dates on Tinder? I don't know. Like I said, I don't really know anything about Tinder as a site or as a platform, but to me, it doesn't seem like people that are in that tier of wealth are necessarily using Tinder to find dates. So I thought that was strange to begin with, that he was even there. But then secondly, this man asked you to come with him to wherever he was going, I can't remember, on his private jet, and you were like, yes. I feel like most women would be like, I'm going to get kidnapped, I'm going to get trafficked, I have no idea who the hell this man is. I have had one brunch with him. I've literally had one meal with this man. There is no way I'm getting on a plane and going outside of the country with you, or even inside the country with you. I'm not going nowhere on a plane with you. For why? We don't know each other. I don't know you. So she goes on the plane with him, and on this plane ride, she ends up meeting his ex, who he has a child with. She ends up having a conversation with her after the plane ride in the car, where the ex is telling her, you know, he's such a good dad, he takes care of his kids, so that makes her feel super reassured that, you know, this is a good guy. He has a, you know, he maintains a really good relationship with his ex. He takes care of his child. I hit the jackpot. All right. All fine and dandy. And, you know, she's seeing all of the wealthy things. She sees the bougie brunch, the bougie hotel, the private plane. So in her mind, she's convinced, yes, he has this money. He's definitely wealthy. I get him. I get through. I have a catch, right? So, okay. Again, all fine and dandy. So they start to date. They form a relationship. You know how those things go. And then the trouble starts. It is so unbelievable that I can't. Anyways, so the trouble starts. Now, mind you, when they were having these conversations, he basically told her that his family is in the diamond business. So that's where the wealth comes from diamonds. And then at some point when they were dating, he sends her these pictures of him being like beat up. And then it starts turning into conversations about, oh, my enemies are after me. I can't use my credit cards. I don't have access to money. I need help. My enemies are after me. You have to help me. Again, this is where I pause to be like, most women, or the women I know, I should say, would be like, okay, I have not known you long enough to be comfortable where you have enemies that are that drastic that you can no longer operate safely. You have to travel constantly. You can't use your credit cards. You're basically in hiding. Why would I want to put myself in danger in any way, form, or fashion? I was so confused by that, because I felt like at that point, even if we are building a relationship or we are in some semblance of a relationship, my survival instincts would be like, deuces, I'm gonna see you later. But that's not how it went. So it turns into, you know, my enemies are after me. I can't use my credit cards. I can't, I need to go into hiding, and I don't have money to do that. Okay, so I don't have money to do that. I need your help. Okay, sure, I get it. That's your man. That's your boo. You want to help him out. So he starts asking her for money. But the money that he's asking for isn't like, let me borrow a couple $100, a couple thousand. No. He's asking for tens of thousands of dollars. And she's giving it to him. So in her mind, though, she's like, I've seen the private jets, I've seen the fancy cars, I've seen the money, I know he's going to pay me back. Which I think is a reasonable assumption, right? You have, in some ways, been with this man for such a long time, and you've seen the wealth because he's wined and dined you, that you don't feel any kind of way lending him a couple $1,000s because he will give it back. He has the money. He's just in a rough patch right now, and you want to help your dude out. Okay, I get it. But where I don't understand is when it becomes a point of, I need to have access to your credit cards. I need you to give me your credit cards to use. I'm going to spend and spend and spend, and now I need you to call your bank to get them to up the limit because I want to spend more. I'm going to forge your name as an employee of my diamond business so that you can prove that you have the income that they need to up your credit limit so I can continue to run up credit on your credit card. Because again, he doesn't have any money because his enemies are after him. So he needs your money to survive. And I feel like, I was like, is it just me, or does that seem crazy? I'm not giving anybody my credit card. I'm not sending anybody my passport pictures or anything so that they could keep taking out loans and credit and all this other stuff on me. No, like absolutely not. And once she has fully maxed out her credit cards at this point, he is still pushing for her to send him money. So now he's pushing her to take out loans. I need you to take out these loans. From where? From who? Because obviously she cannot get loans from like regular banks. So now she's going to take out these loans that have ridiculously high interest rates that there is no way she could ever really pay back. And the other thing I didn't understand with this story is that she's out here taking out loans for this man, but still seeing him flaunting wealth on social media. Because my thing is, if your enemies are after you and you are in hiding, how are you still maintaining this lifestyle where you are out and about and you need money to buy all these things? Shouldn't you be in hiding? What you buying? You should have no sort of bills and expenses, because if you have enemies that are that bad, you should be in hiding. Why must I watch you take my tens of hundreds or tens of tens or thousands of dollars to have these extravagant trips, have these big parties when you are supposedly in such a dire state? So I was just looking at all them red flags like, this man is on fire. That is how red it is. It just didn't make any kind of sense. But I also understand, love can make you do stupid things. And again, she was under the impression that this man is wealthy. I have seen the level of wealth that he has. So he has a rough patch now, but eventually he'll get back to normal. So I ain't have nothing to worry about. And I think at one point too, he also sent her a receipt saying that he basically wired her like $500,000, and she was like, oh, you see there, great, he's paying me back. And then she tried to cash it and it didn't work, and it was just more lies and lies on top of lies on top of lies. I think at the end of it all, she had spent about $250,000 or pounds on this man before, finally realizing that she had been conned and eventually breaking things off. And I think that is where, his downfall started. Because once you realize that she had been conned out to this money, it's kind of like, shit, what did I get myself into? I have been conned out to this money. I still have to pay back these loans. All of them are in my name because, remember, he's been using her credit card. She's been the one taking out all of these loans. So the brunt of everything essentially falls onto her. So in this story, Netflix talks about, police getting involved, reporters getting involved. We kind of get the backstory of, Simon and him being this big con artist. This is just kind of what he does. He basically cons women out of money, and he uses the money to then fund these other relationships. So he uses the money to show other women that he has all this wealth. And then once he builds that relationship with that other woman, cons that woman out of money to show that he has all this wealth to another one. So it's just like a never-ending cycle of him just conning women out of thousands of dollars to maintain this lifestyle and to continue meeting more women so he can continue to con them. Whole hot mess. So in the Tinder Swindler, they actually introduced two other victims. So two other victims, one of which is it's actually not someone he dated, which I thought was interesting. It was this woman who, you know, made it very clear that she was his friend. And, you know, when he reached out to her saying his enemies are after him, blah, 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 she was concerned as a friend. And she wasn't necessarily a wealthy woman. She was actually saving money to buy herself a house. And she took her house money savings to give to him because his enemies were after him. And I was just like, girl, say what? If I am saving to buy a house, which is such a huge purchase, you know, like for someone who, you know, if you've been saving up for a house, you know that is a huge milestone in anybody's life. It's such a huge milestone. And she must be a real good friend to be like, I am going to drain my house fund to give you money so that you can be safe from your enemies. I would have been like, you can come live in this house that I bought. Like, you will have a bed. You can be in the guest room. But I'm not going to take my good house money that I have been saving for years and years so that you could live a lavish lifestyle. Nah, none of that. And like I said, she was just trying to be a good friend. He also did the same thing where he sent her like a receipt saying that he wired her all of this money. And of course, he didn't wire her anything. And, you know, eventually these women come to realize they've been conned after, you know, asking for their money back, checking in. And then he becomes really aggressive and mean and spiteful. And, you know, at that point, the jig is up. And then they introduce us to a third woman. I can't remember her name. But she also, you know, experienced the same thing. But it was at the point where he was about to be caught. So she actually read an article about him. And she ended up, you know, breaking things off. But before doing that, she actually met up with him, took all of his designer clothes to sell so he could make money, and then never gave him the proceeds. And I was like, you know what? You go, girl. Get your money back. So he did end up conning her out of like a good chunk of money. But because she like was like, no, baby, I believe you. I trust you. Let me help us out by taking your designer clothes to sell, which she did. She took it. She sold what she could. I think she's still selling till today. And she just kept the proceeds for herself. So I'm like, damn right, get your money back. So she was able to recoup some of her money. But I do believe the other women are still paying their debts to today. And it's really unfortunate. Because at the end, they actually show what happens to Simon. So he does get arrested. And he spends like a year in jail. Not a ton of time in jail. I remember being very confused as to why they let him out so early. So he spends a very small chunk of time in jail. They let him out. And right now he's out in the world living his best life. Still living very, very lavishly. Which I'm very confused by. Because where is this money coming from? Meanwhile, these women are now in serious debt. And part of it too is because, you know, he was very smart in his con in making sure that everything was in their name. It was nothing that had his name tied to it. They gave him their credit cards. They took out the loans. So they are essentially responsible for paying back those money and paying back the money and for whatever losses they incur. So it was definitely unfortunate to see how those women are currently suffering while he's out in the world still living his best life. I thought that was really, really sad. I feel like when Netflix tells these types of documentaries, there's this air of, you know, this could happen to anybody. Anybody could have been a victim. And my mind is always like, really? I don't think it could have been anybody. I don't think that any and everybody would have fallen for that con. I think that there are people that would ask questions and would be extremely skeptical about giving anybody that amount of money or that amount of access to their finances. Now, I want to be clear. I am not blaming these women for what happened to them. They are 100% victims. They did not deserve to be scammed out of their money in any way, form, or fashion. But I feel like we can't say that, you know, anybody could have been a victim, because I don't think that any and everybody would have fallen for those lies. I think that there are a number of people who would have seen a lot of those things as red flags and who would have asked more questions and dug a little bit deeper. And I am sure if we look, there are probably people that Simon tried to scam that it didn't work because they were like, oh, boy, please. Boy, bye. So I'm going to go in with this Marc Jacobs extra shot in the shade Tan. I picked this up at TJ Maxx. I don't know if this is actually my shade, but it's supposed to be both a concealer and a foundation. So we'll see. We go see today. Okay. Okay. We're just going to keep going. It's a little orange. Okay, we're just gonna go light with this. Okay, not bad. Not bad. So that's basically the story of the Tinder Swindler. So after watching Tinder Swindler, I was like, okay, that was funny, weird, sad. It was a little bit of everything. And then Netflix releases Bad Vegan. And I saw this meme that said something about, like, you know, Tinder Swindler, you know, Bad Vegan saw Tinder Swindler was like, hold my beer. Because if you thought Tinder Swindler was bad, Bad Vegan just took it to a whole other level. Basically, the story of Bad Vegan is, it tells the story of this vegan restaurant owner from New York City who ended, I don't even know if she became a con artist, she was a con artist, it was a little bit of all of that. So basically, she was this super duper famous vegan chef / restaurant owner in New York City. Like, she had celebrities coming to her restaurant. In the series, they kind of really credit her as, you know, really, really pioneering this new wave of vegan eating in New York City. And while she was doing, and she's the lead voice in this series as well. So she kind of talks about her background a little bit, and then she talks about, you know, her being a little weird, a little quirky, which I could kind of pick up on in the series. And then it gets to how the con starts, which is she basically meets this man online who she thought, I think, was a friend of, was it Alec Baldwin or something like that? And then they start this relationship. It was extremely weird because I feel like we did not get enough details on how the courting happened. But I remember her saying that he came to visit her in New York and he was bigger than she thought he was, but she kind of let it slide. I didn't get the sense that she was ever really attracted to him in any real way. And somehow she ends up marrying this man. Very, very confusing. And then the story turns into she is being conned out of money because he is telling her that he needs money to give to the family so that he could make her and her dog immortal. I am not making this up. I'm not. I promise you I am not making this up. I was like, wait, what? And she's telling this story as if it's the most normal thing in the world. So while, you know, after they get married, he starts having a larger stake in her restaurant, starts taking over things. And meanwhile, he's constantly asking her to give him money. It turns out that he is this big gambling addict. So he's taking the money to gamble. But basically, after she spent all of her money, she starts embezzling money from the restaurant to give him money so that he can make her and her dog immortal, not knowing that basically all he's doing is taking that money and spending it at the casino. So what happens kind of overall is that, you know, she's swindling all this money out of the business, and the restaurant shuts down for the first time. So she gives him all the money. And somehow, and I don't know if this is privilege beyond privilege, Somehow, after the restaurant shuts down the first time, she is able to raise funds. I don't know if this is crowdsourcing. This is before GoFundMe and all that. But she's able to raise funds to reopen her restaurant. And even get back some of her staff, which I just found to be quite amazing. Because the thing is, when her restaurant closed, part of it was because, you know, her staff walked out because they weren't being paid. And the reason why they weren't being paid is because she was taking all of the money from the restaurant to give to her now husband, who was out here living his best life in the casino, spending money. So she manages to get the restaurant back up and running. She even manages to win back her employees, and they all come back to work with her. God knows what, Lord knows what. But nothing has changed. He's still telling her that he gonna make her and her dog immortal. And she is still taking money out of the restaurant's account to give him so that she could become immortal with her dog. And I'm watching this woman in this interview like, what? Like, are you really gonna sit here and say all of this with a straight face today? So basically, you know, as she's continuing to swindle money out of the restaurant, they decide to go on some trip to Vegas and just kind of leave the restaurant. So the restaurant closed down for a second time. Then the investors who helped her like restart the company are now like, wait, this is fraud. We've been bamboozled. So there's a warrant out for her arrest. They end up catching up to her and her husband in Vegas. Both of them get arrested and, you know, charged. And she ends up spending I think it was a couple of years. I don't know how long, but she spent some time in prison. What was it? I need to find it out. So in 2017, she actually took a plea deal and she pled guilty to larceny, tax fraud, and conspiracy to defraud. And she ended up serving 4 months in prison. Again, the privilege of it all. Because I don't know if anybody else could have got away with that. But anyway, this was another story where I felt like, I don't know if it was because Netflix needed to make sure they told it in a certain light so that they can get her to agree to the documentary or what the case was. But basically, I felt like this story was told from the perspective that she was the victim in this situation, or the only victim in this situation. And I don't think that that was fair, because when you look even deeper into the story, you know, it was her staff that really suffered, because she was stealing money from this restaurant to give this man so he can go gamble. And she even went to, I think, Italy for some time and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, her staff wasn't being paid at all. And in the series, you know, they talk about, like, you know, there were, like, whole families working there sometimes. So if your entire family is working at one place and not all are getting paid, no bills are getting paid. It was just really, really sad. And what was even more frustrating was there was a point in the series where, like, throughout the entire series, she was basically very kind of resigned, wringing her hands. She seemed really uncomfortable throughout the whole series. But then there was a point where they started talking about vegan food, and her face and her entire body language just lit up. She was just so excited to talk about the benefits of veganism. And she even, like, talked about, you know, while she was in prison, she basically tried to convert some of the other people there to being vegan. And I was like, this is what gets you animated? Like, it just didn't seem like there was much remorse for the people that she defrauded, for the workers that she kind of left shit out of luck when she was on the run. It was just very sad to see that she's doing just fine. She's literally doing just fine, living her best life, even after all of this. Meanwhile, who knows what happened to the staff that she just kind of, like, left behind to figure shit out while she was on the run. It was just such a mess, and that really irritated me. And I also felt, you know, like, while she was telling the story, she did that same thing that they did in Tinder Swindler, where she really tried to make it seem like this could have happened to anybody. He was so charming. He was so funny. Nobody could come and tell me that they're gonna make me and my dog immortal. You have to be Jesus Christ himself walking this earth to show up and tell me, you know, if you give me X amount of dollars, I could turn you immortal. I could turn your dog immortal. It just didn't make sense. Don't try to sit here and convince me that everybody could be as stupid as you, because that is wrong. All right, let me finish up the rest of my face and I'm gonna come back and give you all my final thoughts on these two shows. Okay, I'm back, and this is the final look. Real nice and simple. I just went in with, you know, some of the Fenty Gloss Bomb and the MAC Luster lipstick in the shade Touch. It's like almost done. I'm so proud of myself. Whew. Just really quickly, just to quickly, you know, wrap things up on like the products that I'm using. I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised with this Marc Jacobs foundation concealer thing. Yeah, it's the caffeine concealer and foundation. I actually kind of like it. It's definitely not the right color, but you know, it's not that off because I can tweak it and make it mine. And this eyeshadow palette is stunning, super duper pigmented and beautiful. There are a couple of duochromes in here, so you can create some really nice looks, but this is just absolutely beautiful. And I love how this turned out. It's a really nice purple look. I do want to film like a couple other videos, so I'm going to quickly wrap this up with my thoughts so I can do that before I run out of sunlight and memory. But yes, so going back to Tinder Swindler and Bad Vegan, I think that those two shows are a clear example of the fact that not only is common sense not common, but common sense needs to be taught. There's just something when it comes about street smarts and understanding when things don't make sense that you can't just figure out on your own. And it was very clear to me, and I'm saying to me specifically, that there were so many red flags going into this that I thought it would have been very, very evident. I thought that it would have been really easy to see that, okay, that something clearly ain't added up. 1 + 1 can't equal 5. And obviously that wasn't ringing true for the women in those series. I am, again, not putting blame on those women. They are not to be blamed. They are the victims here. They are the victims. I want to make that 100% clear. But I do not want to downplay what part and what role that they played in the situation, and the fact that at the end of the day, they can't control the con artist's actions, but they can control their own. And in some ways, the way in which they reacted to certain situations and the way in which they accepted certain situations kind of got them to where they are. Could never be me. So there's that. But overall, I thought that those two were very, very interesting documentaries. I don't know what Netflix is doing with this style of documentary, but we gonna see. I feel like they started with Tinder Swindler, went to Bad Vegan, and I'm like, it can't get any worse. Like, it really can't, but who knows? It's Netflix. We'll see where this goes. Anyways, I hope this wasn't too long. I hope you guys liked my very, very chatty thoughts about both series. Let me know down in the comments below if you've watched them, because I am very curious to get your thoughts and your opinions on the series. What did you think about it? What do you think about sort of Netflix portraying this kind of true crime series? Leave all your comments and thoughts below. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe. You know, hit that subscribe button, join the family. Go ahead and hit that like button as well if you enjoy this video. And of course, share with a friend if you think they like the content. As always, I love you guys. Thank you so very, very much for stopping by and hanging with me today. And I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.